Hi, guys. I am with the Chief Operating Officer of InnovationForce, Kim Getgen. Hello, Kim.
Hi, so good to be here.
Tell me more about InnovationForce. What is this?
So InnovationForce is a software platform that leverages AI to help innovators around the world get their solutions seen. So we create challenges that businesses have that they're trying to solve, and we connect them to solutions, startups, entrepreneurs, students around the world so that we have a bigger ecosystem to solve these big planetary problems together. Yeah.
Planetary problems, of course. You know what? One of the greatest challenges of innovation is to be able to innovate that is appropriate to the region, to the area, to the locale, right? And if I may make a statement, a bold statement, to innovate is not necessarily to follow what the leaders are doing. In fact, it's the complete opposite. To do something that is that solves a problem from within, right? My question here for you, Kim, is how do you encourage innovation in a small city like Cebu, so that the innovation is not delusional, but is rooted on the actual on the ground problems of the locale?
No, I've been blown away by this whole event and being able to participate in Innovate Cebu. The universities that you have here and the student innovators. I mean, there was already a group that after the earthquake, within 2 days, built an app. To be able to get supplies to people in need in 2 days, okay? So these were university students that organically came together to solve this problem. To me, those are the key ingredients to like a very rich ecosystem of developers, of builders, of people who are gonna be able to create their own apps, but then eventually their own businesses. So I am very encouraged about the local growth of innovation, and that was another reason why we started InnovationForce. There is no reasons why innovation needs to flow one way. Why should it always have to flow from the US out? It could be coming from other regions in. And so what we're trying to do is create that ecosystem that connects local entrepreneurs trying to solve their own local problems, and then find out there might be another region of the world or business or government that might need this solution. And so I think the world is getting flatter. I think innovation is becoming democratized. And I really believe this is the future. If you think by 2030, I've even seen numbers that say there could be over 1 billion people involved in entrepreneurialism. There could be 665 entrepreneurs around the world. I almost think that entrepreneurialism itself is one of the biggest growth opportunities for job creation. A lot of the Gen Zers are in school and they want to start their business right from school. So I think all of our traditional corporations and the way we look at hiring talent is about to change. As demonstrated in Cebu, 2 days after the earthquake, a group of students got together and created an app. That's insane to me, okay? And so if you have that type of power and talent, why wouldn't those students just go out and start their own business? They're connected to capital, they're getting connected into the government's telling them what problems they need solved locally. Why can't you build it here? And then why couldn't you sell it abroad? So I think that is actually going to be the future. It's flipping the script on what we used to think about innovation. I'm a 2-time founder. My first company was funded the old-fashioned way. It was 20 years ago. You had to drive up and down this place called Sand Hill Road in the Silicon Valley. It was very exclusive, right? It wasn't really open to every innovator. You had to have a Rolodex of people that you could call and get a pitch meeting with and then hope that your idea got funded. That 20 years later has completely changed. And if you think about 20 years further down the road, I don't even think we'll see any remnants of what it was that I lived through my first founding experience.
You mentioned, and it was uttered many times during the talk earlier, culture of innovation, right? Culture takes a long, long time to change, right? I know there are examples, the one that you mentioned earlier, of remnants, or not remnants, but the streaks of innovation, right? But still, we are still a relatively conservative nation, you know, when it comes to innovation. We normally don't create or innovate, we just adopt current or ongoing or existing technologies. My question is, how do you nudge an entire society, an entire city towards that goal of culture of innovation?
Yeah. It's actually building the capabilities. And this is what's really exciting. And not a lot of people know this, but the research of my co-founder, Dr. Linda Hill, she wrote a book called Collective Genius, and she studied culture at 150 organizations, Disney, Pixar, you name it, every major brand, and like, what was the secret? What's the mystery to successful culture of innovation at these companies? And after studying 150 different organizations, she learned there were capabilities people were learning in the how to innovate that was positively changing their culture over time. And so it's actually, it's almost like a myth. I hear people all the time say to me, my culture doesn't support innovation, so it might be too difficult for us. And what I like to say is, well, Linda's 20 years of research shows that if you can build the capabilities on the how do you take an idea, formulate a challenge statement, solve or frame the solution, pilot it, test it, follow a disciplined workflow process, get that feedback. Every step along that process, you're learning something about innovating. When you see companies or innovators repeat that hundreds of times, those capabilities become a muscle. And that's what we're seeing in the organizations we work with, like a Boyd's Power. They're using our process to build the capabilities from the ground up. And that capability to innovate is literally changing their culture. Of course, you know, in especially utilities, you have to be risk averse. You can't just come in and have a culture of break fix. But you can teach capabilities that get people to think with an expansive mind, a growth mindset, problem solving, being more agile. And if you can support people to go through the process and learn following a disciplined, repeatable process, your culture, I guarantee it, will change. And we've seen it and we've measured it. One utility that we were working with started making decisions 85% faster in a highly bureaucratic, risk-averse utility organization. They were able to use some of the capabilities, and by repeating them multiple times in their innovation workflow, change their culture. So don't give up. If you have a bad culture, this can be learned. It's not like inherent that if you have a culture that's resistant to innovation, it can absolutely change. It's, you know, John Chambers, I think when he was at Cisco, called innovation a cancer inside of large corporations. And what we're finding is exactly the opposite. If you can democratize and scale innovation to teach people how to fish, teach someone how to fish, and then they can feed the family, right? So that's what innovation is, I see really about. You teach people how to do it, and your culture will change for the better.
You know, the way that you're describing it, it looks like you're talking about it in the corporate setting, right? But one of the groups of people that we're trying to encourage here, especially in Innovate Cebu, are the kids, right? Are the college students. So, what's your message to all of the students and also all of the educators and the universities and all the schools out there? How do we develop that culture of innovation?
I think the educators are very well aware of the process. Every educator that I've met and at the universities here locally, but also I've been going around the region and speaking to many universities, they're teaching this in their classrooms. So the good news for corporations is the students are already learning it here, so they're going to bring it to your work, which is awesome. But I think the universities know it better than anyone because they are in that trainer and educator role. You can absolutely teach these students how to follow the design thinking process and innovate. It's exactly what those students who came up with the Earth Detector response app followed. They followed the 7 steps or the steps of design thinking and were able to build that app very rapidly, agilely, get some feedback, and then they launched it and put it in the market. So that's just a great example of like how this is already happening. So I think the students are already learning it. The educators are well versed in how to support the students and mentor them through the process. And I think the local businesses and governments are going to be the receivers of that because now you're going to have a workforce that's coming in already knowing the capabilities. Don't be surprised if they start changing your culture. Maybe you're going to be the one that needs to catch up because they're going to be bringing this to your culture, or they're not going to want to work for you and you might be having to buy companies to bring on talent because they're going to start their own companies in school.
You know, innovation is not quite invention, right? In fact, if I'm not mistaken, innovation is actually making use of what's already available and putting it together to solve a problem, right? So it is not quite as difficult as invent and as expensive as inventing something from the ground up, right? It's not reinventing the wheel.
Right. Yeah. Any innovation is anything new or useful that creates value.
Okay.
And so I see that people kind of confuse innovation a little bit sometimes with entrepreneurship. So we say innovation is anything new, new idea. For you, it could be a new idea. It's the first of its kind. To you, it's a new idea and it creates value. And in a business setting, it could be creating value for your customers or for your company. And in a university setting, like the students showed, like they wanted to create value for their community, which is amazing, right? So innovation is anything new or useful. We say everyone and anyone can innovate. So we call it democratized innovation, like everybody innovates. And our mission is to reach 1 billion innovators by 2030. We really believe that the people closest to the problems are the ones that should be empowered to solve it. You know, your boss is 5 levels removed. How do they know what the real problem is anymore? It's what Aboides Power has been preaching here with us, which is awesome because they're getting the folks and it's very young, just out of college students that are using this process to be able to innovate. So anything new or useful that creates value. And then of course, entrepreneurialism is the step to commercialize your idea. And that's monetizing your idea. And so there are going to be some students that we're meeting that may want to form a business. Maybe they need VC-backed funding, right? Maybe they need angel investors. Or others might want to start an NGO or a nonprofit because they just want to create something good that's going to be of use back to their community. So these are all things that would happen after the successful idea gets tested and it's now ready for the next step, which is commercialization. Yeah.
You know, I could talk to you all day, but let's keep it brief so that they'll be able to consume this particular content, this particular video. Thank you so much, Kim. Thank you so much. Kim Getgen of InnovationForce, the Chief Operating Officer, the CEO. Thank you so much. Thank you.